Every week on the Totally Radvertising Podcast, we meet with founders, CEOs, writers, and directors to talk about the creative choices that have made the biggest impact on their brands. And this isn't just any podcast because
it's Totally Radvertising.
I'm Dallin.
And I'm Damian and Dallin.
It's totally rad. It's totally radvertising.
And welcome to the Totally Radvertising Podcast. I'm your host, Damian Dayton, with my co-host, Dallin. Today we have exciting guests, Johnathan Ruggiero and Michelle Luchese from Manly Bands. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
We've been friends for a few years, and we're just really excited to have you on the podcast. Before we get deep into the creative that we usually do, I know we don't have all day, so I want to get into showing you guys a commercial, and then I'll ask you a couple questions. Do you have the link there? Can I send it? Do I need to send it again? I think I sent it.
I have it on my phone.
To you. So I'll just set it up a little bit, then we'll cut away to the commercial. Okay. This was a Super Bowl ad, and in the weeks upcoming to it, Michael Cera was on some podcasts, and he was like, well, don't ask me about my relationship with CereVie. Like, some people say that I started the company, but I don't really like to talk about that. And so he was dropping all these hints about this commercial.
Yeah.
So I'll let you guys watch it, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
I'm Michael Cera, and I'm pleased to announce that this is my cream. CereVie. Oh, you didn't know? Generosity. The truth has been hiding in plain sight. I am CereVie. Can human skin truly be this moisturized? Oh. Yeah. Wow. Let my cream hydrate you. I like this.
That is brilliant. I remember that. That was really great. I remember him being on all those podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great spot. I think around the office, I think in the advertising world, everybody really talked about this spot. So here's my 4 questions I ask about every spot, especially after the Super Bowl. People always want to talk about advertising. Here are my 4 questions. First one, did you like the ad?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, very much.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it was really, it's really funny. You know, they kind of, they made it fun. You know, things like the whispering, the dolphin with the horn on it. They definitely made it very tongue in cheek. It's very similar to our tone.
Yeah.
We've established that we both like dolphins. You know, that's something we have.
Yes.
When we were working on your, Jay kept on saying it needs to be bigger. I'm like, dolphins? He's like, yes. I'm like, okay, but that's
Yes.
How about you, Don? Did you like the ad?
I love the ad. Yeah, I think it's hard to remember. First of all, that was the only one that I remember really talking about after the Super Bowl this year. But it's hard to remember a better sort of celebrity placement than that. You know, we talked about the Dr. Squatch one recently. But yeah, it's hard to imagine a better match than this. So they nailed it.
CereVie is a brand that's been around for a while, a long time. And my mother-in-law just told me about it. Gosh, 2 years ago? I had no idea that it was great, and I started using a bunch of their products. But so to me, to be reminded of that product too, because I kind of forgotten to reorder anymore or go buy some more. And I was like, oh, right, CereVie, it's such a good thing. It's so timely. You know, it's this time of year where everyone needs to be moisturized. And also I love Michael Cera. Who doesn't love Michael Cera? He's just fun and silly. And we haven't seen him in a while too. So I think it's just for me, being reminded of both of those things was really fun.
Yeah, I think it made it an older product, brought it into relevancy again. It's always been a great, I've always had a lot of positive brand association with the brand. This is a high-end brand. So, and my second question with great commercials is usually this: do you remember the brand name? And it's obvious that we all do. It's amazing though how many high commercials people are like, oh, I love the one commercial where the guy that does this thing or that has the cats doing the thing, and they watch it and they don't remember the name. But the associate, bringing him in where his last name is connected, it's so brilliant. You get this high level brand recognition. But my third question would be this: from that commercial, do you have an idea of what the product does? How good is your understanding of what the product does? And I think it's not fair for Michelle because she was using the product before. I want to ask Johnathan, like from that commercial, what's your understanding of what the product does?
That's a really, really good point. Because, if I pretend that I didn't know what CereVie was and all that stuff, to me, what is it? It's a tub of something, right? Like he didn't actually put it on. Like I know he wiped it on the side of the mountain when he was climbing it up, but I don't remember there being any shots where at least I don't remember, of him like taking some out of the little container and like putting it on his hands or something. That's a really good point, Damian.
Like we see the massage happening, right? And we see him moisturizing a mountain, but I'm like, is this a massage cream? Is it a
right?
I happen to know, and it maybe doesn't need that as much because it's a brand where users may have some understanding of it, right? And it doesn't.
I think that's key. Yeah, if I didn't know what it was prior, I probably wouldn't have known. I might have thought it was some sort of perfume or balm or something smelly.
Yeah, but I would argue, like, what is the demo for CereVie? Like, it's not you. And so for women, I'm sorry, you have beautiful, smooth hands, of course, but if like women are the demo, but to be fair, I hadn't heard of the brand, until just a couple of years ago. So if I still was in that place of not having heard about them, I wouldn't necessarily know why I needed to purchase that particular cream. Is it a face cream? Is it a hand cream? Is it a body cream? What is it?
Yeah, really, really interesting point. It's almost like they wanted to create a conversation around it so that maybe the people who did know would be like, oh, did you see Michael Cera did the CereVie? Oh, he did what was it? Oh, CereVie, you don't know? It's moisturizing cream. I don't know. That's interesting.
Well, that ability to live like rent-free in people's heads, I think that's the most important retargeting you can do, right? If you're getting a commercial that people like so much that they'll talk about, you're getting multiples on your dollars that you don't see. I think that's an important question to ask. I often tell people, a lot of startups come and they want to advertise like Apple. And I just say, like, Apple has earned the right to advertise like they do. Remember, they were the minor computer until they did funny commercials against PCs, and now they're the cool commercial. And so now they can have cool advertising. And so CereVie can advertise like that because they have 20 years of history or more. I don't know how long they've been around. But it does still make you ask the question, like, okay, as we're representing this product to the world, how much do we need to explain what it is? How much do we need to explain? And as you're doing branding for manly bands and now you have a women's line, certain things they can't take for granted anymore. And there's a different part of the story we want to tell now, So that's always, I think, leads to an interesting discussion as you talk about advertising. How well do you understand what that product does now? There was a billboard here locally for a long time that was getting a lot of buzz because people were reading it wrong and it was getting the wrong message for it. And I'm not going to give them any more publicity. I'm like, but my problem was they had no connection to what the product actually did. And so people were like, can you believe that sign? No, I can't believe it. And that's as far as the conversation.
And they changed it, but the billboard's still there. So it must be working.
Yeah.
There's one that you've probably seen going down the 15 here. I think it's a KSL ad. And it's it's two billboards. I finally realized you need to know both billboards. But the first one is just like a testimonial. It's just like, I don't even use Facebook anymore or something.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all it says. And I'm like, is it software? Like, what
is it a new social media platform? Is it a
I'm like,
social media?
I didn't know what it was. Then finally, like the same colors are on the next billboard a few seconds down the road, and it was like KSL. And I'm like, oh, they're talking about selling stuff because it's like a classifieds ad. But it took me like 3 drive-bys before I realized it. So I don't know if that was like part of the plan. Oh, make them think about it, or if it was an oversight. I don't know.
I think when we talk to clients, I always say, if you give us notes, remember this: we're professional video makers, but everybody is a professional video watcher. And I feel like that I could do a whole podcast just critiquing billboards because I love doing that too. Yeah. Like, what can I do in 7 words that's going to make a difference? But then my fourth question I usually ask with a commercial is, did you buy it or did you increase your likelihood? Did you plan on buying it afterwards? And as I sent the commercial out, I went home and I realized we had 4 different CereVie products in our home. I don't think my wife saw the commercial. I'm like, it worked in some way because we have a lot more CereVie around our house than we did before. And it's great. Our listeners at home are going to be listening to this probably in November. I used it last night to remove my Halloween makeup. Like it's a fantastic face cleanser. Because you also feel moisturized after, and my skin is soft and supple. I didn't wake up like this. This takes a lot of hard work.
No, I believe it.
I have some sitting on my desk actually, like in a tube, just like they're hyaluronic acid one for your hands.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
I don't even know what that means. That sounds scary.
I don't know. It's something that like captures moisture. I'm not fancy enough, but it's good.
The influencers know, and they're talking about hyaluronic acid a lot.
There you go.
If you get the dermatologist videos and you're not just getting the pimple popping ones, they're talking about.
Oh, that's my
hyaluronic
problem.
acid.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm getting the pimple popping ones and the horse hoof trimming ones, and there's so many weird.
I get the horse ones too. You get those?
Yeah.
How does it know?
Well,
yeah.
Some guy, he's like cleaning out a horse's hoof, and there's like a.
Got to get a Manly
infection or
Bands
something.
ring right on that, right as he's scraping those big things
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Just to get a close up on introducing the horseman, and it's like you get in that.
Yeah,
No,
that'd
well,
be.
it's because TikTok's algorithm, people don't get this. It's not based on what it knows about you. TikTok's algorithm is based on what you've stopped. And so even if you're like, ooh, that's weird, what's going on there? The fact that you stop, it's going to deliver you more stuff like that unless you teach it otherwise. So, I mean, I think Dallin's onto something. I think you should approach one of these guys and do a Manly Bands placement. It's like, it starts off like a horse hoof trimming video, snap zoom in his hand,
Yes.
introducing the horseman, And,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's a great idea, Damian. We could start off with the craziest stuff going on, but then it like just ignores that, and it's about what's on his hand.
yeah, and it just gets you like introducing the doc. It starts off as a pimple popping video, introducing the doctor, the skin doctor,
Yeah, and then it pans down to the ring. Yeah,
Yeah, pan-
Oh, that's great.
And I know horse people and I know dermatologists for you, so
Okay.
I'll connect you. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Manly Bands and what you guys do?
Sure. Yeah. Do you want to
Yeah,
take
so
it? Yeah.
we're Manly Bands. We sell badass men's wedding rings, and we also have a women's line now too. It's pretty
We
fun.
do. Yeah, we wanted to create wedding rings for guys that they can get excited about. And so we do that by really incorporating unique materials like dinosaur bone and deer antler and meteorite, along with all the traditional metals that you've heard of. But we just want to make it a cool and fun experience for guys.
When we first met you guys, we normally work with brands that are like super disruptive, things you've never seen before. And we thought, this is just a ring. But really quickly, we learned it wasn't just a ring. You guys had added a lot of magic to what you were doing in the process. For the sake of Dallin, tell us your founding story a little bit and why you decided to get into men's wedding bands.
Ooh, yeah. Can't wait to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So, it was 2016. We were engaged to get married, and the time had come for us to go to the jewelry store, which I have to say wasn't something I was looking forward to because as a guy, I didn't wear jewelry. I really wanted Michelle to have something that she was super excited about. And so we went to the jewelry store. Michelle had all these options to choose from. And myself, I didn't know my size. I didn't know what style I wanted. And the problem was they couldn't even fit me at the store anyway. So I have large hands, and we were unable to actually even pick a ring out for myself. And it was kind of this really like sad experience for me. Michelle had all these options to choose from. She was super excited about the different styles. And I was kind of relegated to the back of the store where there was 4 or 5 styles and none of them fit me anyway. And so we ended up finding something online that was totally unimpressive and boring. And I remember later, after we had moved to Florida from LA and we're kind of taking a break from Hollywood, and we said, you know what, let's try to solve a problem we understand. And we started talking about, remember that experience where you just couldn't find a wedding ring that you liked? Maybe we can change that. Maybe we can find a way to make getting a wedding band as fun for the guy as it is for their partner.
And as you looked at a new market, I think what blew me away was there's this massive market. Just as many men are getting married as women, and nobody was taking care of men. And how they buy and what they care about is totally different. And it was so disruptive to get that message out there, just to sell rings in a different way to them. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about also your background, because you didn't come from a jewelry background.
Yeah, you mentioned Hollywood.
We did. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, we both went to film school actually.
Yep, I went to NYU. John went to Emerson, and we were going to be big filmmakers, and I was an actor in Hollywood. Like that was the thing, and we tried the Hollywood thing. John was trying to be a new Steven Spielberg, right?
As we all were.
As we all were. Yep, I was trying to be a new Drew Barrymore, and we're out there, busting our butts, pounding the pavement, and it's hard, as everybody knows who's in Hollywood or who has ever tried it. And we just kind of had hit a burnout point in it. And we decided, okay, well, we're getting married. Let's take a break. John was saying, like, what if it's just 6 months? We get out of Hollywood, get a little bit of a perspective on it, and that was the plan, just 6 months out of LA. But while we were there, you're a creative person. So you become a bit of a marketer, especially as an actor. I became a little bit of a marketer for myself. You learn personal branding if you're doing it right. And so, I was the hot mess, best friend, wacky girlfriend, kind of character. And so all of the rings that we designed, we decided to give them personalities and names. And to us, they became like characters in the big story of Manly Bands. So it still, exists. Like our entertainment background definitely coincided with what we do now still.
Early on, at what point did you decide? Because every ring that you offer is a character. And it seems like every ring has a story. At what point did you decide that was going to be an important part of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, we coming from that creative background, we know that in order to connect with people, you need to tell a story. And so, also being entrepreneurs, we kind of married the. I love dad jokes.
Because we're married.
We kind of married the whole concept of, okay, what if we bring creativity, the storytelling creativity, to selling products. And so it was actually Michelle's idea to come up with the names. We really wanted things to be as authentic as possible and exciting for the guy, and to try to connect that style to their personality. So how did you come up with it? Do you remember? Yeah.
Sure. Well, we started just kind of batting name ideas back and forth, and it became more about being aspirational to that guy. So the CEO was one of our first rings, and the CEO was not named for the guy who is actually a CEO. The CEO was named for a guy who is climbing the corporate ladder, who really wants to be the head honcho. He wants to be the boss someday, and he is just pounding the pavement. He's doing all the work to get there, and he's working really hard, and that's supposed to be inspirational to him. Because to us, the ring, yes, it's a symbol of your marriage, but also it's something you have to wear every day. So it should be something that, like John said, you should be excited about, but also something that represents you and how you see yourself in the future.
Yeah. So I remember when you guys first came in and showed us all your rings, and they were so awesome. The two things I remember is they had an aesthetic experience on the outside. I mean, they're cool and gorgeous rings on the outside, but they all had something kind of as a secret on the inside, like a color or a design on the inside as well. And
Okay.
I think that gave it a lot of meaning to me. And I remember thinking like, oh, those names are nice, but I don't care about that. Just I want to find the ring I like. And the first ring I was attracted to was the producer, which is what I was doing at the time. It was, so you had totally pegged me, And since then, I think I have 3 Manly Bands now. Today I'm wearing my silicone one, but the producer is my favorite. And then I got another one that has dinosaur bone and meteorite in it, because I'm like, well, I got to have one of those. So,
Got to.
yeah, I got to have one of those at least. So was that a deliberate decision to have kind of a internal aesthetic and an external aesthetic to the ring?
Yeah, I would say not every ring has an internal aesthetic, but yeah, it's like a cohesive piece to us, so like that character, whatever he needs on the outside or the inside, I would say like that's what it is. But yeah, we're very thoughtful about what goes where and exactly what the profile is, what color of, like, say blue, exactly what color of blue and why. We get a little deep with it.
Yeah, because I can get one that's just like titanium on the outside, but has gold or blue on the inside.
Yeah.
Let me back up and ask you a creative question. Do you remember as you launched it's so crazy when you start a business and trying to find anything that works. Do you remember the first piece of creative that really took off for you guys?
Oh gosh. Well, it was really funny because so when we started our marketing of Manly Bands, we didn't have a crazy catalog of creative for the rings like we have now. So I remember the first piece of creative, and this is interesting because it wasn't just the photography, it was the copy also. So so the photography was just a picture of a guy. It was stock photo. So this totally kind of messes with the whole concept we're trying to portray here about great creative. This was not great creative.
Got to start
the
selling
copy
that.
was really good. And so the copy, it ended up kind of developing into what we call our tone now, our brand tone. So it was very irreverent, and it was very much, hey, is your husband dragging his feet looking to get his wedding band? Like, we can help you. And the engagement we got on that was so ridiculous back then. It almost made it feel like the picture at that point didn't really matter as much. We didn't see true success though until we paired that irreverent copy with really good creative. So we'll bring it all back around to the good creative. But in the beginning, it was very much stylized photography of our products. And so we went away from the white background, traditional product photos, to more of a relevant, creative product photography. So I think it was like Valentine's Day was the first major holiday that we really pushed. And so it was very Valentine's focused pictures of rings, and there were roses and this and that. And, the goal with any creative, as you all know very well, is making sure it connects with your customer. And so we tried to follow that trend to make sure that whatever creative we put out there, it really represented the brand, but also connected with the customer, whether it's kind of that aspirational tone, if you're a cowboy and you're rugged and, you work with your hands, or if it's a holiday, or if it's, a gift giving time. And we always tried to make sure there was something a little extra. It wasn't just a picture of a product.
Yeah, and maybe one really recent example of that is our Black Friday campaign, because we sell a lot of black rings. Black is it's a big trend right now for men, and so it's really easy to use our brand with that, and then also talk about this season. So Black Friday, black rings, super easy to do. So you can do things like that make sense for your brand, but also for the season that you're advertising for.
I think you said it wasn't a great piece of creative, but you said it had great copy. I started as a writer myself, and I think that's the beginning of all great creative. If you have great writing, it will stand out. I think a lot of people are just having ChatGPT do their headlines, where I think if you have a really great writing, it could really make you stand out and tell a different story than your competitors. And
absolutely,
have an attitude.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
One thing I quote, Johnathan, from you often. I remember that first strategy meeting that we had, and we rented some house in Salt Lake, and we were talking, and you had mentioned as you grew your business, you would kind of find you'd grow, and then you'd find a plateau. And then whenever you got on that plateau, you realized you needed to do something different, and you needed to do something different. And I think that resonates with a lot of entrepreneurs that we talk with. They're doing something right, but then they start getting diminishing returns with that. Can you tell me about what that's been like and when you found those plateaus in your business? And the steps
for sure. I think a lot of it has to do with, you get to that point where you've kind of pushed your promo, or you've pushed your ring design in our case, or you've pushed your creative as far as you can, and everybody's seen it. You've hopefully saturated the market. And, over time, people get, at least in the creative world, you get creative fatigue, right? And that's when you want to do something different. You have to give them a different reason to talk about you, or a different reason to think about you. And so that's kind of how we've done it. We've always gone out there and said, okay, let's do a campaign. It's going to be about a couple, and they're going to be talking about rings. And we'd run that. And at some point, you definitely get diminishing returns. And I think you can see diminishing returns across other areas of your business too. We'd really push a certain material, or we'd have a really great post-purchase sale, or we'd use a certain packaging or something. I mean, there's lots of little areas where you never want to get too comfortable, because that's where we found we plateau. And so we're always looking to optimize. I think the last 5 years, every year we call it the year of optimization. and I think that the truth is every year should be the year of optimization. Yep. You should be constantly trying to improve where you are so that you don't hit those plateaus. And I don't think that's anywhere more important than in creative. I mean, we have to constantly be iterating and trying new things. And that's something that we're really focusing on this year and into 2025 is, not just getting stuff out there, but then testing it and seeing what's working, and have metrics that we're going to look at to compare as we iterate. so that we can always kind of be moving in that direction. But when you rest on your laurels and you see these companies that have like one product and they just blast the heck out of it, and maybe they make a bunch of money in a few months, but over time, in the end, it's going to start to have diminishing returns. And those aren't real businesses. Those are like viral things. And if you really want to have a long-term success, you have to grow, you have to adapt, you have to iterate, and always be kind of pushing the envelope and trying to disrupt.
Well, you guys went from this place where you were using stock photography and then product photography to now a place where you're really all in on production. You have your own studio. You've had brought a lot of production in-house. What got you to that point? What kind of thought made you think this is really important? We need to be doing a lot more creative, because you have kind of a full channel now. I can follow people talking about your product, but then you also have your high-end commercials as well.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's really a way for us to differentiate ourselves. And there's not a lot of companies out there that really invest in it. But my philosophy has been, especially the last 4 or 5 years, is that we're not just a company selling rings. We're a media company selling rings. It's you have to kind of look at it from this, for me, a content creation place, and then the product that you kind of sell as a secondary story. So, we try to come in as, we're going to push every different type of content across every different platform out there. Because if we just put up pretty pictures of our rings and try to sell it, over time, we'll start to get those diminishing returns. So we're always trying to kind of push the envelope. And if we can create, we live in a world right now where people are just consuming content like crazy. And, they can pick an ad out of that pile of content, so easily and then ignore it. And so we need to find other ways to create that connection. It can't just be, hey, go buy a ring. It has to be entertaining. It has to be educational. It has to be a way for people to really connect beyond the transaction. At least that's my philosophy.
Yeah, people want to connect with brands. I mean, you see these iconic brands, like Nike and Coca-Cola, people want to connect with a brand. So why not let them connect with your brand, whatever your brand is? Like, what's special about you? What makes you iconic, in the future? And, one thing that we do is we partner with other brands and, in a licensing fashion to bring some of those brands to people in a wedding ring, which is really fun. And, no other wedding ring companies are doing that in the metal space. And it's really fun. It's a blast to work with them and a blast to work with their materials. And we're, we have a lot of fun trying to get super authentic about what makes them special. So then you've got the two brands, like what makes us special, what makes them special, and putting them together to make really like a piece of art. I mean, that's what I hope our rings become.
How do you guys sort of manage so when I think about marketing for a company like this, and it's sort of similar to me to like an apparel company, and to I had a handbag company, and there's sort of this, you have these two sides of messaging that you want to showcase on a basic level. You want to talk about the product, and you mentioned trends, like the black rings are doing really well, so you want to talk about the black rings. And I think when people get to the website, they want to find the style that they really resonates with them. But then you also want to talk about why Manly Bands is different and how you guys are doing things differently. So how do you sort of blend like I think maybe when you guys were hitting plateaus, it sounds like maybe you ran into certain issues where the trends would change, or like a hero product would kind of go out of style. So you're blending, like talking about why Manly Bands is awesome, and then also getting them to, sort of honing in on like those hero products, what's trending, what's going to resonate with certain audiences. It seems like there's a lot of, maybe complexity there that I see other brands kind of struggle with as well.
Yeah, I mean, iconography, I think, helps a ton in terms of just like bite-sized communication about what makes you different and your policies. Videos, like we said earlier, we do invest in content. We have a blast, making videos of the guys and gals in our shop, in our manufacturing shop, because we manufacture some of our rings right here. And so we'll take our video team through there and do an edit of making one of the rings. So that's really fun to show how we're different. What else would you add to that? Anything?
Yeah, I'd say anything along those lines. Just always trying to find ways to kind of push that story.
Yeah.
How did this ring come to be? How are these products created? And that might be part of something that other companies can do too. Is like what is the story behind that product? It's not just some widget you're selling. There's everything has meaning to it. How do we find a way to showcase that meaning and then ultimately connect the future customer to it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I would even use the example of the video, Damian, that you guys produced for us, where we tell the brand story of John and I. You know, it helps an audience connect to us, because when you're buying a wedding ring, you know, it's a big thing in your life. You want to buy from someone that, you know, you feel like is a good company, who's going to treat you right, who's going to have a warranty, all of those things. It's a special purchase. It's not an impulse buy. And so to know the story behind the brand and be able to connect with that, I think is really helpful. I think that did a ton for us. We still run that commercial too. Yeah. We love it. So I'm a big fan of telling your brand story and helping people connect to you as business owners as well.
Well, I think what was interesting about that video in particular was it was intended to be a top of the funnel piece, but at the time when we first started running it, we really found it was really powerful for people that had already been to your site and were considering your product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And once they got to know you, they're like, okay, I love these guys. I'm all in. You know, like,
yeah.
You're kind of hard not to love, but they already kind of had a ring that they liked, but understanding your brand and your values and stuff. But I also love that you said, I think people want to see their stuff being made more and more. They want to see behind the scenes of the company, and they want to get involved in that. Mm-hmm. Let me go back a little bit. I was thinking about when we first met. You guys were like, your whole company was van lifers, really. When we first met, it was a bunch of Winnebagos and vans pulled into and you were running the company from around the country.
Wow.
And I have to think the investment in a major piece of creative was a huge thing to bite off. It was a huge investment / risk. Emotionally, what were you guys going through that made you want to do it? And what were you kind of scared of at that point?
Yeah, that was a really interesting time in our life, to be honest. I'm not even sure we've shared this with you. So we were just getting off the road. We wanted to come to Utah because we love it here and we love the people, and we wanted to make a commercial. And we were lucky enough to meet you guys and just super impressed and enjoyed every minute of it. But during that time, we were also kind of transitioning out of the RVing thing, which was so great in so many ways, but so horrible too.
It's so hard.
It's
you guys.
hard,
yeah.
especially for us. We're on the phone. Feels like 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, I'd be in the little tiny bedroom area with the little door closed and, sitting on the bed taking meetings, and Michelle was at the little dinette taking meetings, and we're trying not to talk over each other. So, have these meetings. So we were kind of a little burnt out from that, honestly, because we didn't really do it right. We didn't really like camp and relax. And I think we had one fire the entire 4 months we were on the road, like one campfire at a campground, and it rained. So it wasn't like we were, vacationing or anything. So, but we had just done that. We had just been talking to Shark Tank and going through the ups and downs of the roller coasters to do that. And
made our own creative from the road for that too.
We shot a bunch of videos to get into there, and we were at the last part where they send this giant contract over before you go out to LA and do the final audition. And then we were also dealing with a lawsuit at the time for something really frivolous.
I remember something about that, because the axe is in your logo, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was something with the axes.
Yeah, but I didn't know about the Shark Tank stuff.
Yeah, so there was a lot of change happening, and then of course, business is stressful and cash was always tight, and so we were like, okay, we got to make a decision here. We're at the point in the fork in the road where it's like, okay, we go to LA and we do this thing, with these guys. Or we go back home and wish we never did this because there's a lawsuit, or we go to Utah and we're like, all right, we're going to do what we did when we started the business, which was put all our eggs in one basket and we're going to take a chance.
Yep.
And
we're all in.
All in. And so we went to Creatively and we said, you know what, let's do this. And we, like we always tend to do, we took the greatest risk, and thankfully we got the greatest reward. Yeah. But it was a scary time for sure.
What did that campaign, because I don't get it behind the scenes, what did that campaign that we did together, what did that do for you guys?
It put us on the map, 100%. And I think we thought that it was going to have a more immediate effect than it did. I would say it probably took like 3 to 6 months for it to really start to churn. But every time it comes up, or, if someone has seen that commercial, they're like, oh yeah, the wedding with the dolphins, right? And her sleeves grow, and I was like, oh yes, that's us, so it really did like stay in people's mind. And, you know, I think if the brand hadn't evolved into like a little bit more of a mature guy at this point, we'd probably still be running it. But he's like gone through college now, I'd say. So he's like, he's maturing. Yeah. He's very mature now.
It's slightly different brand tone now, but we still run the John and Michelle one for our founding story. And I think, like Michelle said, it put us on the map. It was really the first piece of creative that we used in a brand awareness type play. Whereas before that, we were always very much running, you know, demand generation. Okay, we're going to spend $1, we're going to make $1. Everything's paid media. Like, what can we do? And you know, as I'm sure you've probably talked about before, like it's you can't just put all your eggs in one basket. At some point, every brand has to do brand awareness type advertising, and that was our first piece. And it was really, really amazing to see the success that brought. And like Michelle said, it's not immediate, but it's like SEO. You have to invest in it. And over time, it definitely pays dividends. And yeah, no, we're super thrilled with the way that turned out. That was huge.
Yeah, but to your point too, you're either creating a brand that is lasting, or like you mentioned before, you're creating this sort of like seasonal product that comes in and goes out. And to me, and I feel like, you know, what I've seen in the industry is if you want something to last, you have to have a brand. You have to have a story behind it. You have to have something that is lasting. It can't just be something that you invented that's interesting and cool. That's fantastic. Awesome. Now make it special with the branding and figure out a way to market it to the correct people, and then have them be an advocate. You know, I mean, there's so much to do once that product is created to create a brand.
One thing that's been cool for me to see from the outside is one of the spots we did together was a little bit of an experiment. It was kind of an homage to Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
And then to see that come full circle and lead to, you've now done a brand deal. And tell me about that. I mean, it was really like, kind of like, oh, let's see if we can pull this off. Yeah. And now you're actually working with the Tolkien estate, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is the coolest. It is the most amazing thing to have the One Ring and to be able to be licensed with WB. They're so amazing. But also, like, just as a ring company, there are a few ring companies that actually have the ability to sell that ring legally, and to be able to say like, hey, we know the history behind this. We've taken a whole bunch of things into consideration. We work with this company. And even to look at the line of rings that we have for Lord of the Rings, they've all been meticulously designed by all of the folks that work for us that are into Lord of the Rings. And so there's so much love and heart in that line of rings. And you can see it in the sales. I mean, people love them. They buy them. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, though, because I don't think we had envisioned at a time. We thought, oh, this is a funny joke.
No.
Yeah, right.
But it led to
cool?
bigger conversations. Yeah. And I think sometimes people are like trying to figure out the end instead of just starting with a good idea and seeing where that goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it seems like you guys have leaned into even more of that sort of branding content. I mean, I remember the first time I heard about Manly Bands is when I saw those billboards on I-15. There's like 3 of them in a row. And clearly that's, you know, a branding play. What other sort of big campaigns like that or other content are you doing just more for spreading the word about Manly Bands than that direct response type of performance ads that you were doing before?
Yeah, sure. So we've dabbled in all sorts of different things for branding. Let's see, we did the billboards.
TV.
We've done, linear TV and connected TV for top of funnel. We've done, postcards. That's right. We just got into postcards. So we're using a service called Posty, which has been great. You know, talk about getting the word out in a different way. Like, you know, to actually have physical mailers go to people's house. You know, it sounds so like old school, like even pre-digital. But it's different. You know, people are so used to just seeing ads on their phone now, you know, but it's neat. They can actually physically touch something. We're able to send like a little ring sizer as part of it. Like I can cut it out of the postcard. And so it's kind of created a new old way of doing things, and it resonates with people. It's great. And again, I think it also creates brand credibility too. So we're trying to get more into the brand play because, you know, we know that the true health of the business is being able to survive on that primarily, which is really hard to do in today's day and age. I don't actually know any like small or even mid-sized brands that can do it without any paid ads, but it's definitely something we're trying to have more of our spend go towards because we rely way too heavily on paid.
Yeah, I guess a couple other things I just thought of too. We do PR. We're pretty good at PR, and we also do product placement, which we think is really important. So you're getting your product into movies and TV, and yeah, there's a fee to that, but it is a brand awareness play. You know, oh, what's that cool ring that guy's wearing? You know, what's that cool, car? I don't know. I can't think of any other like products right now, but like
James
what's
Bond
that
is like the
cool
best
thing?
example of that. But
Yes.
your rings are so iconic. Like you're not going to see
Thanks.
nobody else is making rings that look like a basketball, or
Right.
rings that look like that are major branded pieces, but or that have meteorite or dinosaur bone, or the different crazy things. But also, so I also wonder about this. We have a couple of the crazy rings out there they're amazing, but they're like at the edge, like, do I want to wear that every day? How do you balance that? Because I've often thought you need a little bit of the crazy out there that attracts everybody. And then a lot of people are still going to buy the gold ring. They're going to buy a fairly standard piece. What is the balance that you look like? How many, do you have products out there like, yeah, we're going to sell 5 of these, but it's going to bring 1,000 eyeballs, I feel like in the fashion space, you always have to be, your product is such a key part of your marketing. The product has to be able to sit there by itself and attract eyeballs, And so how do you balance that as you're coming up with new ideas and new designs?
Yeah, for sure. So we call those like our showstopper or thumbstopper now products. And so we definitely have those, and it's a whole part of the marketing plan. So we have a couple of rings just off the top of my head that we would consider the thumb stopping rings. So we have one that's a tank ring, and it's quite expensive because it's actually pieces of this one tank that we certify the authenticity of it. We know which tank it was, where it was from, where it went, all that. Wow. But it's from this big piece of tank, the Firefly tank. And so, we advertise that like crazy, and folks come, and very few people actually buy it. But I think it really shows that we create the stuff in-house, we make it ourselves, we have an incredible team doing so. And ultimately people just want to learn about it. They love the history behind it too. And so they'll see those ads, and then they'll come, and they might settle for something a little more, traditional, and just a gold ring or a black ring or something like that. But it is those rings. Like we have another one, like our Joker ring, for instance.
Yeah, Joker's great.
We don't sell a ton of them just because they are so loud and different. Yeah. But it is super cool, but it's very, very non-traditional. But again, we advertise that, and people want to come and see what it's about. So I think, to your point, you have to kind of do stuff that, helps you stand out. And then a really high percentage of people just want something more traditional, but it definitely gets their attention, which is great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, inherent in that ring is a story, and it makes me think, well, what other stories do you have to tell? And then I start thinking, well, I want to tell my own story with my ring. What is the story about my wife and I and who we are, and this ring, how is it going to help me remember? That's the ring I picked had the blue interior because my wife has a blue sapphire on her ring, and so it makes me think about her, and blue is her color, and but all those other stories bring me in, and like, oh, I want to tell a rich, deep story like that too.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining us today on the podcast. I know you guys have places to be. Thank you, and remind everybody, keep your eyes open for amazing creative. Send them in to us at info@totallyradvertising.com, and we'll maybe critique your ad next. And if people want to find Manly Bands or follow you guys, where's the best way to follow you guys?
Oh, just check us out at manlybands.com, or check out our socials on Instagram at manlybands.
Awesome.
Yeah, and thanks for having us on, guys. This has been a blast.
Great to meet you guys.
And viewers at home, we'll see you next time on TotallyRadvertising.com.
Totally rad. It's totally rad.
Join us every week right here on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you listen to stuff for your pods.